Chapter 12. It is a pale winter's day in the lee of the escarpment. The sun has climbed above the brooding mountain, bathing the highway in its diluted light. While no longer holding the cold of the night, the air is not warm either. It tugs at both Little Mikey and Atlas, threatening to invade even Brian's thick jersey. Little Mikey shivers. The scene is forlorn. A little way up the lonely highway stands Atlas's truck, grounded by the bullets that have passed through its engine and by the car that has passed underneath it. The wreck is lying further down the highway, twisted and crushed. Atlas stands with men from the police force, fluid leaking between their feet from the wreck. A tall man is with Atlas. He is dark, his skin burned brown, his beard black, the shadow of his policeman's hat and visor covering his eyes. He towers gaunt, his shape of this place, water buried deep, limbs hardened in summer's heat and eyes that see far, that see within. He is the man in charge, all can see it. He carries the weight of the open highway across his broad shoulders, the weight of this place of living and dying. Mikey limps nearer. He has been forgotten, his little shape overtaken by the bureaucracy of death. More are attending with the tall man. They inspect and fret and make sense of the wreckage. Behind them, emergency services stand idle, the emergency now past. Okay, we can cut them out. It is the tall man who has spoken. The little mouse that is Little Mikey is now near enough to hear. Just be careful. Let's at least try to identify these guys. A man and a woman draw near, each dressed in dungarees piped with fluorescence and carrying a metal arm between them. They power the machine and it begins its work, peeling the metal carapace of the wreck back from the soft bodies within. Soon, entry is made into the passenger door, the place of the man with the white bowler hat, and Little Mikey watches as the man is drawn out of the wreckage. He comes in soft pieces, and Little Mikey looks away. They lay him on the tar. "I had no time, Eugene," says Atlas. "They came upon me quickly. I had to react." The tall one nods heavily, patting the shoulder of the truck driver with a reassuring hand. "We can see their firearms and the bullets in your engine, my friend. You had no choice." After the first body, a firearm is indeed drawn out. "R4, mutters the policeman closest, and he whistles. "Can we bring the driver out from here?" asks the tall man. The woman with her hair in a braid and the jaws of death in her hands nods to the commander. "I think so. Let's just widen here a little." They work in silence, the rending and pinging of the metal, all the accompaniment their efforts need. Soon, the doorway is peeled open like an iron flower and the man is down on his knees. He crawls partway into the interior, gasping, and then returns bearing weight. Slowly the driver is pulled through the opening. He is as the first man and comes out soft and broken. He is young, not much older than a boy. He has no hat and his face is unmarked. The tall man, Eugene, reaches out for his friend Atlas's shoulder. He sways a moment. "Eugene, let's lay him out." They do, and during the course of this terrible noon they lay out 2 others so that finally 4 of them lie beneath the pale sun. Little Mikey watches as they are placed in rows, their weapons with them. Little Mikey cannot look away from the dead boy's face. It is unmarked. It is as if he is sleeping, but he is not. He is gone, and only a mask remains. Soon more men and women of the country's highway services arrive, and hospital services and health services, and the road is dotted with markers and guides to the nature of the crime. A stop and go is set up, feeding the traffic of those making their slow way to Grootstad one way at a time, while the brooding escarpment rises blind to their sufferings. It is at this time that the tall man, Eugene, turns his eye to Little Mikey. The boy had been invisible within all this busyness and thought he was hidden, but the commander of the highway patrol sees all. He takes a moment to study the boy with his dark eyes, offering no word, and then he turns back to the men and women that hover and work. "Atlas, this little boy, I will take him with me. He will be under paperwork late into the night." And later still, "The body of this driver, don't take him with the others. I do not want him moved now." All of the commander's staff obey. Finally he is ready to depart. Atlas places his hand on little Mikey's shoulder. "Thanks, my little buddy. I'm glad you were with me today. You helped me through a horrible mess." He kneels before the boy and hands him a slip of paper with a number written on it. "Whenever you are on the road, Atlas will have a lift for you." As Atlas's hand leaves little Mikey's shoulder, the hand of Commander Eugene replaces it. "Come, boy, we have a drive ahead of us." There is nothing little Mikey can do but go with him. The silence in the motorcar of Commander Eugene of the Highway Patrol is deep. Both he and little Mikey carry the loss of life with them. Commander Eugene's ride is a double cab pickup, strung high off the tar on heavy tires, purpose-made for hard driving and with a suspension to match. The bed of the pickup is separated from them by a tinted window, useful for the times that the commander must transport men and women for their crimes. The road hisses beneath their tires. It is empty now, the bottleneck of traffic around the accident site dispersed, the ants of the highway free once again to journey. The cliff of the escarpment draws near. Little Mikey raises his eyes to its height. They are in the deep shadow of it. Far above, the sun shines on its highest peaks. The route ahead can now be seen, the road snaking upwards in parallel cuts, one way and then the next, up and up the sheer side. Even from here, little Mikey can see where trucks have left the road in times past. At the apex of each corner, a swath has been chopped from the bush in a terrible run to rock. Glass sparkles in the brown bush, the remnants of wrecks that have been removed. This highway is Eugene's, those wrecks his personal charge. It is under him that the victims of careening metal were freed from their coffins and transported away. The rising escarpment is almost upon them, seeming to loom almost over them, when Commander Eugene flicks his indicator to the left and slows. Ahead a turning appears, signposted green with white lettering. "Tranquility," it proclaims, and the commander turns into it. Little Mikey looks up in surprise, watching the cliff now sliding beside them on the right, the top hidden by the roof of the cab. Will they not climb the hill? The journey up there has been in his heart for these past days, always cycling through his mind. All the world had been strung towards climbing that hill and tasting the sun from up high, and the thinned air. Grootstad is up there, and the future. Down here is the past. Commander Eugene is silent, his dark eyes watching the dark road. Little Mikey subsides, his backpack held securely between his feet. What can he say, alone in this motor car? What can he do? "Atlas told me you are on your way to Grootstad to find your mama." "Yes, sir." "What is her name?" "Clarissa Stansfield, sir." "And her profession?" "She does washing, sir. She was washing the clothes of the farm lodge, Mr. Langeveld's farm lodge, in Vryburg." "That's a good profession." "Thank you, sir." There is silence in the cab. "What is your profession, sir?" "I am the commander of the highway patrol. These roads on which we drive are under my care." "Sir, do you know the road people?" "Oh, yes, I know your friend Angelo, too. The two of you had quite a time at the one stop in Gehenna, didn't you?" Dread steals into little Mikey's heart. What does he know? "He helped me get a lift with Atlas, sir," he says quickly. I didn't know how." "He helped you relieve the town of some of its taps, too." "Sir?" Fear is pounding in little Mikey's heart. Commander Eugene turns to look at him, his piercing eyes seeming to spike him to his chair. "These are my roads. Nothing happens on them that I don't know about." I'm sorry, sir. We were hungry. And cold, too. Do you have more of that juice with you?" "What juice, sir?" "You know well what I mean. The glue that Angelo gave you to keep warm." Little Mikey remembers the fumes steaming sharply into his lungs, and the fox looking out at him from a scattering of white petals. "No, sir, I don't have it with me. He didn't give me any." The man is silent, his dark face merging with the settling dusk. Little Mikey looks from his steely eyes down to the firearm strapped to his side. "That glue will harm you. At first it will keep you warm when it is cold, but you will not realize that it asks for a price in return." "What is the price, sir?" "It asks for your freedom." Ahead, twinkling lights appear in the shadows. A settlement is nestled in the lee of the escarpment before them. Commander Eugene clicks his indicator, even though there are no other vehicles for miles. and he and little Mikey enter the town of Tranquility. It seems to little Mikey that this town has no center. There is no main street like the towns he has known. There are no homes for the rich up high and the workers below. There is no river and no highway. Rather, there is one grid of dusty streets with homes rounded by wire fences. Chickens peck behind them, dogs loll, and kitchen doors stand open with light spilling out from within. Trees crowd in from left and right, climbing above them to shade these streets with their waving limbs, indicating deep water. This is a place of growing things. The soil is full of the minerals of the dry lands, released by a well that seeps beneath them. Little Mikey hears music. It drifts on evening's breeze, haunting and mournful, seeming to rise to the escarpment that brings this early dusk, and beyond it to heaven. Commander Eugene slides his pickup onto the shoulder of the dusty lane. Before them is an open glade among the simple cottages. It is ringed by oak and willow, their branches rising alternately to the sky and dipping down, making canopies upon canopies. Beneath them, 20 people have gathered. "These are friends," says Commander Eugene. "They are the laborers of the Shap farm near here. They are fruit growers." The people stand each with a chair behind them, arranged in rows, and they hold their hats in their hands while their faces are turned to the sky. They sing, some with their eyes closed, while a drum carries their voices. Commander Eugene stands quietly, his quiet causing little Mikey to be still also. What can they do but wait for the song that seems to have no beginning and no end? It circles on, and the singers raise their hands. At times a member opens his eyes, marking the sky and the raised branches of the trees, and the presence of the dark stranger and the boy. Little Mikey finds himself closing his eyes too. The music thrums through his cells. His thoughts begin to vanish. He opens his eyes, and one of the congregants is looking towards them. He is smiling, his eyes twinkling like the stars. He winks at little Mikey and then waves. Startled, little Mikey waves back. He looks up to Commander Eugene. The man is watching, always watching. The congregant moves towards them, careful not to disturb as he gently bumps his way through. "Commander," he breathes, extending a splayed hand. "You are very welcome." "Hello, Janus." Commander Eugene extends his own hand and the two touch warmly. "This is my friend, Mr. Mikey Stansfield." "Hello, Mikey." The man takes little Mikey's hand and covers it with his own. His palm is warm and strong, full of the song of these people. "Commander, would you like to see him?" "Oh, yes." "Come, Sheena will be happy to see you. There will be food for all of us." Janus leads them out of the glade onto the dusty street. They turn into the very next little cottage ringed by wire and grown over by the branches of trees. The smell of cooking wafts from within, folding little Mikey's stomach over in a delicious turn. "Sheena?" They follow Janus into the little home, straight into a tiny kitchen in which a wood stove burns. Here is Sheena. She sits at a wooden table in the center with a pile of carrots before her and their shavings all around. Her smile is bright as her eyes alight on the commander, and there is delight at the sight of the little boy. "Hello, all of you!" She bustles as she stands and rocks her way sideways to clasp both of them to a hug in the confines of the little kitchen. "But, Commander, what a surprise! Sheena, this is Mikey Stansfield." "Hello, my boy. I'm sure you are a hungry one after a day on the road. I will have some supper ready in a few minutes, bread and stew. You will eat with us." Little Mikey flashes a look up to the commander, hoping it will be so. Eugene is aware of the boy's pining stomach. "Sheena, Mrs. Steele will have supper for us also, but of course I can't say no to a little sit-down." "Oh, lovely. I'll make us coffee. Would you like to see him?" Janus is gesturing to the commander from the doorway into the little cottage. "He is awake." In one stride the commander has reached the doorway. "You stay here with Sheena," says Janus, smiling at little Mikey. "I would like him to come too." Janus smiles. "Of course, Commander." Little Mikey looks from one smiling face to another and then joins them. Janus leads them into the next room, a sitting room with a bed beside the green-vined window. On the bed is a boy. He is quiet, dressed in white cotton pajamas, and he stares unmoving at the darkening country outside. He is around little Mikey's own age, Angelo's age, and on impulse little Mikey steps forward, ready to greet another of these smiling people. But he stops short. There is something odd about him. His stillness is too deep. And then, with a shock, little Mikey sees the rope bound about his wrists and body, trailing to a mounted hook in the wall. Quietly, Commander Eugene goes to the boy, folding his long frame down to sit beside him. He places a hand on the boy's shoulder and gently murmurs to him. Suddenly, Janus is murmuring in little Mikey's ear too. "The commander saved our boy. He wouldn't give up on him. He told us that he would watch and be there when our boy was ready to come home. And he did." "What is wrong with him?" Little Mikey's whisper is as soft as Janus's own. "He gave his freedom away." Just then the figure moves, perhaps prodded by the words of the commander. He shifts round to place his head against the chest of the larger man. Shock fills little Mikey's body. What he thought was a boy is not at all. It is a young man that is sitting on the bed, as old as the driver of the hijackers, but his body is shrunken. He has very nearly disappeared. He seems to be listening to the words rumbling from Commander Eugene's chest. "His name is Sarel," whispers Janus directly into little Mikey's ear. "I thought I lost him. He went out on the road. I heard only bad things about him. I asked God to take him because there was nothing more that Sheena and I could do. In my heart, I gave him back to God. And then he returned to us. It's the commander that brought him. Will he get better? We believe he will." Janus's words are so soft they could be the breeze that blows gently through the trailing vine at the window. "He lost his soul, but every day there is a little more of him that comes back. He is paying the price of his way in the world, but he is coming back. The commander is calling our boy back." The eyelids of the son Sarel fall open, and little Mikey gasps to see that the eyes inside are white. "Go to Sheena now," whispers Janus. "Eat some food with her. Your tummy is empty from a long day on the road." And little Mikey does, while the soft singing of the glen wafts on the breeze through the open window, and the commander murmurs, faint, like the drums. It is dark when little Mikey and the commander are back on the road, the tires hissing beneath them. "Commander?" "You can call me Eugene." "Eugene?" "Yes, Mikey." "Do you think Sarel will find his freedom again?" "It depends on how much he has damaged his brain. If the damage is permanent, if there is too much, then he will not." "But do you think he will?" "I truly don't know. I have seen many miracles in my work out here on the road, but there is no telling. There is certainly hope. Sarel is changing. 3 months previous he did not react to my voice. Now he can hear me. Whether he can understand, I do not know." "But do you think he will?" "I do, yes. I choose to believe that he is yearning for his freedom, and every day he is striving for it. If you do one thing every day, the same thing, with the same destination in mind, day after day, eventually you must arrive there. I can feel that boy's desire for the light of freedom. It is locked up somewhere deep inside him, but I think he will get there. About them the night is thick. To the east the escarpment rises." "Eugene?" "Yes, Mikey." "What is freedom?" "Freedom is knowing that you always have the ability to choose." Little Mikey clutches his backpack to him. "Well, how do you know?" The commander smiles. "By remembering that your choice will one day be taken away from you." He strokes his fingers down the line of his beard. "All of us know that the moments we have are limited, and so every moment is precious. As we drive this lonely road right now, we know that we may not make it home, and so that knowledge brings us a choice. Knowing that this moment will never be repeated, how will we live this drive, this one that may be our last?" "How?" The commander turns to him, and his eyes are alight with a secret. "We will live this drive as if it is the most beautiful we could ever see, as if it is a gift that could never be matched, because that is true." He turns his face back to the road, his eyes seeming to glitter in the dark. Do you see these winking stars, Mikey? This beautiful bush hidden out here? Remember this moment, because you will never have it again. A road sign appears green in the headlamps. Clava flashes in bright white letters. This is why that glue charges such a high price. It gives you comfort, but it asks for your freedom in return. It takes away the one thing that you really own, your will. What is your will? It is your freedom, your ability to choose a direction in this world. He thinks a moment, and then he smiles once more. As a man of the road, you already know this. I'm a man of the road? Commander Eugene raises his brows, seeming to point to the black tar winding before them. After that, he falls silent. He watches the road unceasingly and without fatigue. His silence breeds Little Mikey's own. He watches the road also. It seems to flicker in the twin pools of Eugene's headlights. Its white stripes shoot beneath them. Suddenly, a spring hare is streaking from the verge, the mirror of its eye flashing as it makes for the other side. It seems to Little Mikey that the animal will find its end beneath their spinning wheels. Desperately, he lifts his feet to try to help the little thing, to somehow bounce over the certainty of its passing. But the bump does not come. In the rearview mirror, he sees the flash of a blazing eye disappear into the bush behind them. Death is what gives us our freedom, because it is an iron door through which there is no coming back, murmurs the commander, as much to himself as to the boy beside him. In the face of it, there is only one thing we can do: live. Little Mikey turns from the commander to the flashing path ahead, his heart beating wildly in his chest. The road winds, endless in the white headlights. Little Mikey wakes to a new sound. The engine roar is gone. At first, all is black, and then light cracks the dark. A door opened in the quiet of the inside of a garage, the figure of the commander silhouetted against its light. Little Mikey rubs his sleep-crusted eyes. Another figure has joined the tall commander. Her head reaches to his chin, and she wraps her arms around his waist. The two stand that way, and he murmurs to her. She listens intently. Little Mikey can tell by the tilt of her head, and then she steps away from him and disappears into the light of the doorway. The commander turns, and Little Mikey closes his eyes, not wanting to be seen, to hide behind sleep. The commander passes him. Little Mikey can hear him opening the back of the pickup. He hears him grunt, and the sliding of hard plastic against metal, and then a grunt once more. The commander is returning, passing Little Mikey, and the boy slits his eyes against the light. He sees the form of the commander bowed under the weight of a load on his shoulder. It's a long sack. The commander turns so that he can fit through the door. Now Little Mikey can see the sack better. There is an opening in it right near the window where Little Mikey is nestled, and a human toe is peeking out. The commander stoops and steps into the door's light, disappearing. Little Mikey follows. With his backpack held to him, he clicks open the door of the pickup and steps through the light himself. He is in the passage of a home, wholly different from that of Janus and even Mrs. Darling, but similar also. On the walls are photographs, the commander and his wife and what must be their son. Little Mikey studies this boy in the pictures. He is smiling, growing throughout the years beside his smiling parents. Ahead there are murmurs, the talking of the commander and his wife, and then the voice of the woman rising in agony, and the cries of the commander too. Little Mikey slides down against the wall, unable to go nearer those horrible sounds. Hours pass. He sleeps and wakes, and cold steals into the house. He begins to shiver. He unfolds himself and pads quietly towards the kitchen. Here is devastation, broken plates, shattered glass. At the far end of the room, a door is open and the cold of winter drifts in. The open doorway is an invitation. He can hear the commander out there speaking with the sky. Carefully, he looks beyond the door. Outside is an open garden ringed by the pale forms of desert trees, and in the center stands the commander and his wife, gaunt. They've built a pyre. It is hip height, the labor of hours. On top of it lies a body wrapped in a white sheet. The head is bare to the open sky, and little Mikey rears back in shock. It is the driver of the car from this morning's incident on the road, the young man he saw drawn from the crumpled BMW, with the unmarked face, one of them that lay open on the road while the men spoke. Little Mikey sees now that he is the boy in the pictures. He is their son. The face of the commander is terrible. The light has gone from his eyes. He is bereft, emptied of life. By his side his wife is bereft also, and when she speaks, her voice is haunted by pain. To love in the face of death is madness, and yet we do it, she says, because we cannot explain the kingdom we are born into. We cannot explain our compulsion to love. We are provided with wonder and sorrow in equal measure. We walk forward. We follow the winding of the road. The commander steps forward, and there is a rasp and then a flame, and he touches it to cloth. The flame dances straight up in the windless night. It glitters in the face of winter. He touches it to the wood, and in no time the pyre is consumed by flames. The commander watches it burn, and then turns away when he can look no more. His wife does not turn away. She watches all through the night. The stars shine resolute, caught in their own trajectories, dying in their own time. Little Mikey turns, fleeing into the house. The morning is heralded by birds. The bush is full of them. They sing in a frenzy before the coming of the pale sun. Little Mikey wakes in the living room of Commander Eugene. The house is a shell. He can feel it. Its heart has been ripped away. In his mind he can see the man standing before the fire and the woman. He will never forget the sight. He pads through the empty home, faintly lit by the coming sun. The kitchen is as it was, scattered with glass and ceramics, and the door still stands open. Little Mikey steps out. He must. Outside, the pyre is burnt to ash. The landscape is brown and dry, interspersed with bare trees that twist towards the sky. Although the birds join in a magnificent choir, he cannot see them. Their brown bodies hide among the brown leaves along with the various creatures of the veldt. All of them living, all of them speaking of this life. The ash of the pyre is empty. Standing near it, little Mikey can still feel the heat from the night's flames. It is heat from the past. He hears footsteps and turns to find that the commander has joined him. His eyes are dark-ringed. He trails to the edge of his garden and selects a rock from his boundary line. He heaves it up between his strong fingers and brings it to the place of ash, places it down, and then returns for another. He seats himself on it, his feet in the cold soil, and little Mikey sits beside him. Together they observe the grey ash and feel the heat of it waning on their faces. He was a shining boy, says the commander. He grew like one of the animals of the bush here. Happy. He had love in his heart. But then he drew away from me, from his mother. Commander Eugene brings his palms together and twists, grinding memory to the fore. He places his head between his hands. The heat of the smouldering ash bathes their faces. The birds intensify their song as the sun comes to the bush in long rays of morning and new beginning. I wanted to see him once more, to touch him once more, to hear his voice. The ashes are silent. I wanted. The commander rests his face on his palms. Everything is taken from me, Mikey, and yet I am still here. He stands, his hand on little Mikey's shoulder. It is a dead weight. Even though my boy became my enemy, he was still my greatest love. He was my boy. He was a man of the road. He stands in that way for a moment, and then, what makes a man of the road, Mikey? Little Mikey cannot answer, but he does not need to. The commander does it for him. A man of the road walks forward, always. As long as the road continues, so he continues, choosing only his direction, marveling at what the road brings him at every turn, knowing that it is one thing, and one thing only, that will matter when one day, finally, his road is no more. Did he love? And how much? The commander hefts a spade. He leans forward, about to dig it into the ash when a wind comes up. It whips across the bush and swirls about them, and the ash of the pyre flies up into it. It circles above them, dissipating before the coming sun, and the birds sing, as if this day might be their last.